I remember during the beginning part of the current uprising and or efforts to liberate Iran from the Mullah regime that's illegally occupied Iran since 79, how emotionally the emotions you shared, Goldie, and how that demonstrated to the whole world that there is no comparison between Iranian people and the brutal regime that's illegally occupied since country since 79. To that point, with regards to nuclear power rebuilding in Germany, Germany actually played an integral role in building Iran's civilian nuclear power under the Shah with the Bashir power plant. It was only after the Mullah regime had sat there and took over, occupied Iran that got disrupted and then sidetracked. A lot of people like Tweety and a couple others are very upset about the damage that the Mullah regime, I'm getting emotional, so I'm choked up, has caused to the critical infrastructure of Iran. I promise you, even when it comes to the water infrastructure, like the thousands-year old like aqueducts you guys have, next gen nuclear and co-located like nuclear desalination will make Iran bloom again. It doesn't matter if they burn even everything to the ground. It'll be rebuilt again.
Thank
Nobody has a problem with Iranian people having access to nuclear power. Everybody has a problem with the Mullah regime having an access to nuclear power, right? It's like a child mannequin. A child mannequin in a children's department store, benign and non threatening. Find the exact same child mannequin in a convicted child molester's house, and it takes on an entirely different meaning. I just wanted to share that everybody
Mhm.
know everybody's all in on making Iran bloom. I promise you, especially the patriotic bloc in America.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Kind of you to say. And yeah, I mean, Iran under the Shah actually signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So, back when we were a normal country, we were building nuclear power plants, but, for legitimate peaceful purposes. It was only when the Islamic regime took over that they breached the terms of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And one of the things in the Iran Prosperity Project is a commitment to, not developing nuclear for, military or whatever purposes, right? Like we're not interested in that. And I think it's really important to respect the terms of the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. My response to that always is infrastructure can be rebuilt, but all of the young people who've lost their lives will never come back. And so many Iranians inside of occupied Iran feel the same way, where they say, you know, who cares about infrastructure when all these young innocent people have been murdered. And so the Iranian people feel the same way. The reality is that the country is in disrepair anyway. The Islamic regime has ignored the infrastructure for the last 47 years. Armin made a very good point about rebuilding because most of the infrastructure is garbage anyway, because most of it was built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when the Shah was around. And then when the Islamic regime came in, they've just basically been taking, and they haven't invested anything in the country. The only thing they've invested in is their underground missile cities, which billions and billions of dollars invested in that. But schools are in disrepair, hospitals are in disrepair, roads are in disrepair. So, yeah, infrastructure will be rebuilt. We know that Iran is going to be great. We'll make Iran great again once Iran is free. But we're more worried about human lives and the lives of Iranians. And we know that as long as the Islamic regime remains in power, that's going to be the biggest threat because Iran's biggest resource is not oil. Iran's biggest resource is the Iranian people. And
Yes.
that's priceless.
Yes.
I want to continue that line of the biggest resource being the people. I want to also say there is an advantage to not, first of all, if there is easy money, then you're gonna get mafias. Like it happens. You get the oligarchs, like if you have to put effort in, if you have to put like to rebuild something, then you have the extra filter of merit that is added on. Those people who are willing to invest, who put in the work. And another thing, there is a lot more room for people to take and have do initiatives, local initiatives. Remember that one of the biggest things to stay free people is to be innovative and to actually distribute power as much as possible. So for people to rise locally, it would make sense for when it would give that possibility. And so, and it's a little bit also unhealthy. The reason why the Islamic regime can operate the way it does is because they don't need the people. They have the gas, they have the oil, they can kill 90% of the population and still have money and thrive and everything. They are not reliant on the population, which is, it sounds like, okay, I know there is this tendency, okay, we're not going to go back to this kind of regime. But first of all, like, this kind of structure is already built in people's consciousness, whether they want to follow it, to continue doing so or not. Armin, I know you disagree, but it's just the way things are, right? It's
No, it's
just the
not.
way
It's
things
not.
are.
The Iranian people are the most thirsty for democracy. It's not at all.
Yeah,
Tyranny
but
is not built.
that doesn't,
The tyranny is not built
no,
into
but
their conscience at all.
it's not tyranny. It's the mindset of innovation on local versus mega projects. Mega projects, a lot of time, bring corruption with it. Whether you like, it just, I'm sorry. So, and it's not that I'm saying that it's what's gonna happen, but it is something that that can happen. And if people are more innovative, take more initiative on the local, when which is what happens, when there is need to build, when things are not, you cannot rely on, okay, so we have gas and oil to rebuild something. You have to be creative. You have to, like, it opens up people's minds. It makes them more free to
All right.
think. It's actually a good habit to have. In general, it's not good to rely on resources when you are building a
Yeah, there's
country.
a way.
It's an
When a country
extra,
is
it's not,
when
it's
a
a
country
bonus.
is resource rich, there are ways to adjust for the negative costs associated with that. Norway, for example, has figured that out, and if you look at the IPP, they're completely aware of that, and they have ways to address that. But when you say it's just the way it is, nothing in politics is just the way it is. It's not math or physics, so there's no like hard rules in
Oh my
in
god, it is
society.
math and
Like I'm
physics.
not done. I'm not
I
talking. I'm not
disagree.
done talking. No, it's not that. Yeah, well, if yeah, I've studied political science, and I know that political philosophy and political science, and I know that any people who come up with hard rules in politics and society, they don't really like. That's not how society works. There is no hard rules. That's for math. That's not for society. Things always change with society. Things that you thought about rules, eventually, like something happens, they're like, oh, this violates all the rules that we thought it was there, and trends will stop being trends. And the Iranian people, for example, have been proven to be very innovative, because as soon as you see them outside of Iran, they're one of some of they have demonstrated that they don't have that mindset, right? So it's just the Islamic regime in power. So as soon as that tyrannical mindset is power over them is removed, then we've seen them being very entrepreneurial and very innovative in other places that is not Iran. So but I do appreciate the risk associated with being a resource rich country. That is very true. I completely agree with that. There are ways to adjust to basically reduce the risk associated with that. And if you look at in the IPP, for example, a lot of it has been evaluated. And Norway is a very country for one of the other costs, other than the risk that you mentioned. The Dutch disease is another issue that is a problem, but being resource rich. Norway has managed to figure out a way to not have to deal with that as well. But you are right that being resource rich is not always just a blessing.
If you rely on oil and gas to rebuild the country, then you're becoming more like the Dutch disease than the Norway option. Like, there is a filter that comes with requiring merit for rebuilding, which is
We
not
know.
required if, the reason I'm saying that is to say that Iran will become great, and whatever you think would hold it back might actually push it forward. And that's the mindset you need to have, like,
Right. No,
the
that's true.
winners.
That's 100% true. For example, in Germany, they thought a lot of the destruction of the factories is going to hold Germany back. But what it did actually is that once they rebuilt, they had the most modern new factories compared to all other European countries. All other factories were like ancient and old, and Germany's factories were all new and modern. So all of a sudden, their factories ended up being more advanced. So sometimes you think like, oh my God, the factory is blown up. This is going to hold us back, and actually ended up being an advantage to them. So that's completely right.
If we have gas and oil, great, we're going to rebuild fast and easy. If we don't, we're going to rebuild fast and easy, and we're going to have creative economies that together. Like we're
We
gonna
need a
win anyway.
sovereign
That's the
wealth.
thing.
We need a sovereign wealth fund where we put the oil and gas money in there and invest it instead of just using it to
Yes.
build stuff.
I think it's also important to recognize that you can't compare Iran to Gaza. We're not the same society. So, a completely different baseline. We also have a team of experts that are educated and trained from around the world, a lot of people with PhD. So, Rebecca, I would encourage you to go and read.
I would.
Well, let me finish.
Let Goldie
I know.
finish
Let
and
me
then
finish
you talk.
speaking.
I'm just saying, like,
Let
Let me
fin-
finish
yeah.
speaking. I would suggest you go and read the Iran Prosperity Project because the Iran Prosperity Project outlines the exact path that the people within the country and the transitional government are going to take in terms of rebuilding the country. And the Iran Prosperity Project is built, it was developed and written out by a number of experts, Iranian experts from around the world with PhDs and experience in various ways, various areas of life. So I fundamentally disagree with your premise when it comes to Iran, because Iran is not like other countries that, and it's certainly not Gaza. So I would just say we have a plan. Iran was a constitutional monarchy, it was a democracy prior to 1979. So we already have that historical knowledge and experience within Iranian society and culture. And that's what we're fighting for. I would encourage you to go read the Iran Prosperity Project.